Wrong presentation. Okay, so we're just about to get started here. All right, thank you so much for joining me this morning. So the topic of our presentation today is on foundations of lifestyle and coming off of a cleanse. So what I've been observing and learning from you is that there needs to be some firming up on direction around the 4th week of the program. And so that's what I want to focus on. But regardless of where you are at, if you're at the 1st week, the 2nd week, I still think you can get a lot out of what we're going to talk about today. Just as far as even just planting seeds and making you aware of some of the pitfalls that can definitely be avoided with proper planning. And just to kind of open you up to this idea of what is a healthy lifestyle and what does that actually mean? So we're going to talk about, how to come off a cleanse, because the first 4 weeks of the program is about detoxification and cleansing. And then we're going to talk about the best lifestyle practices that you should maintain for after the cleanse is over. So I do recommend that you take a look at the assessments that you filled out during your orientation week. If you remember that, it's all the way back before you started the lymph cleansing in week 1. You filled out a bunch of assessments, and copies of those assessments were emailed to you. But if you also want to, you can retake those assessments over again, which I think could be really interesting, as you've been doing these practices for a month. So you may be able to really see clearly the benefits and the changes that have been impacting you. So again, we're going to talk about how to come off of the cleanse well, the best lifestyle practices for healthy immunity, inner peace, and digestive strength that you should be adopting. We're going to talk about diet, herbs, spices, intestinal healers, and cleanse practices. So the best way to come off a cleanse is to return to the healthy lifestyle you established before your cleanse. That's the best way. And as you go forward and you do this again, or you do like some augmented version of it, you're going to experience that more depthfully at each and every time you commit to doing a dedicated program. You're going to experience that the return and the coming off of it, you stabilize the foundation deeper inside of you, and it's not as drastic when you go on a cleanse or go off of a cleanse. But for most of you right now, there isn't a healthy lifestyle established, and that can add to the challenge if you don't think it through, because the cleanse that you're coming off of, or the program that you're coming off of, what are you returning to is the big question. And if you return back to the familiar, it's only going to be a matter of time before you start to produce the exact same results and consequences of what brought you here in the first place. So doing a cleanse and doing a dedicated detox program is amazing. You can really catalyze some really deep shifts and transformations in a short period of time. You can dramatically reduce symptoms in a short period of time. But if you don't have the stabilizing effect of a positive and healthy lifestyles to support the deeper dive into cleansing that you're doing, then you just don't have anything to support it. So you can't vacillate between these huge extremes of doing really strict dietary and detoxification augmentations and feel better, and then swing the other way, and you kind of find yourself in this binge purge cycle, and we want to really avoid that. So step by step, to be able to do this appropriately. So the first thing that you want to do is you have to create time for yourself regularly. This is a foundational attribute to what a healthy lifestyle is all about. We talk about developing a really empowering morning routine, and that's, I think, probably the most important thing that you can do every day to be building a really good, healthy lifestyle for yourself. But a lot of times in imbalance and imbalanced symptoms, it's really just been a consequence of a lack of creating time. And so that means time for introspection, time to think about how you feel, time to think about what you want and where you're going. And a lot of people experience the consequences of not creating time in different ways. But for most of us, what happens is that we become reactors in our life, and we become reacting to the waves and whatever comes our way. And you don't make sound decisions that way. And you're not able to direct the course of your ship when you live that way either. So the most important attribute that you must have in a healthy lifestyle is time. The second thing is to get centered in your intentionality. So you're doing this Ayurvedic cleanse, and a lot of times whenever any of us approach a health and wellness program, we are like looking for, it's like this paradox, it's like on one hand, you're looking for this guide. You want a system, something to bring you in balance. But at the same time, you don't want the system. And a lot of times people rebel against the rules or throw away the rules or feel guilty because they weren't able to live according to the certain standards. So they feel like a failure, which then catalyzes the unhealthy behaviors that they're trying to escape. Your life is not about living according to the set standards of any philosophical system out there, including Ayurveda, including whatever. Your life is about you and the full expression of who you are in this life. So it's not about checkoff lists. It's not about doing things right or wrong. It's about you living in alignment with who you are and your true purpose. So the way to do that first and foremost is to get centered around your intentionality. I mean, what is the point? Why is it important? Why is it important for you to eat a healthy diet? Why? Why is it important for you to get good sleep at night? Why? What is it? What is it that's important to you about it? And that's what we want to identify first. And that's why early on in the program, we do the I want exercises, is to help you to get clear around your intentionality. That's what we're supporting. That's why we're doing all this work, is to help you become the full expression of who you are, not some version of a standardized set of checkoff lists and rules. It's not about doing everything correctly in the morning, dry brushing your skin, scraping your tongue, drinking this much water. And if you don't do A, B, C, D, E, that you fall into some kind of consequence. If you're doing those things mindlessly, if you're doing them with dread, we're totally missing the point. We want to do things that help you to connect in with your body so that you know what's going on with your physical processes, and so that you can take as much responsibility for your personal health in every capacity that you possibly can, without relying on the external advice and opinion of whatever institution it may be, So we're trying to enliven and empower you to take control of your health to the fullest capacity that we can. So there are no set rules. Ultimately, this is about you realizing your dreams, your life dreams, and your lifestyle should support that. Your lifestyle should support who you are and where it is that you're going. So there's a term in Ayurveda and yoga that's called dharma, and that's your individual purpose. And if you are living against your individual purpose, you start to suffer the consequences of it, so that can manifest in many different ways. You know, it sometimes is hard for me to personally wrap my mind around it, but according to the Vedic system, the purpose of life is to grow, to prosper, to be abundant, to be joyful, to have desire. And the desire, if it's in alignment with our highest good, is in alignment with the universal highest good. So if we're living against the grain of that, we suffer symptoms. Our intuition starts to speak to us. And that's what we're starting to pay attention to and really get a grasp around. So after you watch this video, I would advise that you watch the self-care video. So I'm going to be moving this into either the 4th or 5th week of the program, which is where I think it's appropriate. This is where these questions seem to universally sort of sprout up. So by then, you should have a really solid idea on what an ideal lifestyle practice is for you. And that does include diet. And that includes a healthy relationship with food. You know, one of the things that I really love about the Ayurvedic way is that it understands that there's not really a universal dietary system that is applicable to every single person. You know, there are certainly characteristics of ideal diets. And I mean, if we look at the evidence that shows itself all over the world, as far as what a healthy diet is that supports longevity and strong immune system, it is one that is plant-based and mostly vegetarian, includes grains, has small amounts of fish and small amounts of meat. You know, and in these communities, this is where the longest living lifespans are. And so it's like there's some pretty solid evidence around that. So just in speaking about things like ketogenic diet or these other diets that are just, you know, ruling out natural plant foods like fruit, that has so many different antioxidants and benefits to it, you know, as a rule, is pretty extreme in my opinion. But it doesn't mean that it can't be used for short-term benefits therapeutically to assist the body in getting back into alignment. But even that said, we're figuring out what the right proportion of fats and proteins and if there are any dietary allergies, and we're figuring that out, what your ideal diet is for you. So I really want to talk about and maintain this theme of intentionality, because I think it's everything, and creating time for yourself. And, you know, Ayurveda has this really amazing inclusion of nature into healthy lifestyle, and that there are these certain ideal practices that are best done at certain times of the year, certain times of the month, and certain times of the day. There are so many different practices that you can adopt. And if you're just at the beginning of your study, there's no rush, you know, there's no hurry. And actually the foundations, which you definitely learn about in this course, are so powerful that they can really sustain you for quite a while as you continue to grow, and become more in balance. So there's, and filling up your schedule with as many things as possible is not the way either. You know, not every single person has to do neti pot rinse, for example. Every person doesn't have to do that. Somebody that has allergies and congestion and certain issues, or wants to experience it or use it as a meditation aid to help with clearing out and washing out your sinuses, you know, those are all indications, but not every single person has to neti pot, you know, however many times in the fall. You know, so it's kind of looking at the scope of the practices, which have learned so many as of this point, actually, and asking questions about them. Come to the live classes, utilize your coaching calls, and you can learn more about how to delegate the practice that you're learning on an ongoing basis. And we'll talk about some of those today. The lunar practices, which are these specific practices that you can do during the moon time. And so we'll talk about those, and daily practices. So those are practices that you just do every single day. So the seasonal practices are in general, are used to help you to adjusting to the changes of time of the sun, to eat the foods that are in season, and to follow certain practices such as diet and detoxification methods that augment the environmental influences such as temperature. Okay, so let's just break this down in like a super practical, easy to make sense way. If we lived on a farm and you and I lived off the land together and you lived with me in Illinois, right now we would start to see certain changes as we were entering into the fall season. Right now we're transitioning from summer into fall. So if I look out my window right now, I see things happening. I see that the leaves are drying up and they're falling off the trees. I see that their patches of grass are turning brown. I feel that the temperature is dropping and getting colder, and I see that the winds are picking up. So there's these distinct changes in temperature, which in Ayurveda, it's considered to be a rise of the dosha called Vata. And so, which also shares these same qualities of coldness, mobility, dryness, etc. So the earth provides the antidote. The earth provides the antidote. It grows squashes and pumpkins and oily food. And our lifestyle practices, like what would we be doing if we lived on the farm? So we would be doing things like canning and fermenting food, for example, which is, very powerful gut healer for the gut. It helps to build the immune system, which is one of the characteristics of the fall, is building the immune system. And each of these seasonal practices carries itself throughout the rest of the season. So if you build your immune system in the fall by eating, higher amounts of fat, higher amounts of protein, root vegetables and ferments, as you're going into the fall and winter season, all those practices are building your immunity and are carrying you through the winter so that you don't get sick. So the springtime is, probably if we were living in this farmland again, when we would have been running out of stores of food, so our stores would have been running low. We would have had to conserve more. We would be caloric restriction, we'd be undergoing natural period of caloric restriction, fasting. So, and fasting, we know today, has many powerful life extending benefits and the ability to reverse chronic diseases of all kinds. There's tons of research that's coming out and has come out about the power of fasting. So scientists theorize that these natural periods of fasting were important for our overall health, but as we moved into our modern world of convenience, skipping out on those fasting periods becomes easier and easier. And so then if we move into the summer, this is when we have access to lots of easy to digest fruits and vegetables, carbohydrates, we're naturally more active. So to get in touch with your seasonal practices, it doesn't have to be that complicated. It's going to be different depending on where in the world you live. Like you wouldn't follow what I'm doing here in the Illinois in fall if you lived in Costa Rica. I think right now it's either, it's the dry or the wet season. It's either dry or wet. There's a different seasonal climate there. So you need to understand that, it's very simple and that you want to apply opposites. So there are very simple things that are obvious. Like if you're cold, dress warmer, if you're dry on your skin, use oil, so that's easy to understand application of opposite. Some other things will take more practice, but it's just time and practice and intention and observation, and learning about perhaps what traditional methods were, traditional cooking methods. You could Google that. Lots of people are talking about that and doing that right now if you want to get ideas. But mostly spend some time outside in nature, spend outside some time in your environment, just observing what's happening. and eating what's local, eating what's in harvest, and following the flow of the season. Also in your ebook, you have personalized practices that are broken down for each season too, that you can refer to. So, one more hugely important thing that I want to say about the seasonal practices is that this is like the ideal time of the year to think about what it is that you want, intentionality. So what I like to do is use the season. So I think about like, what am I going to try to achieve, this year? What are my big goals? Like, what do I want to achieve? And what are my big goals? My big goals might be different than your big goals. Your big goal might be to figure out what you want to do. I mean, that's a pretty big goal. It could be a work goal. It could be a family goal. It could be a mental health and wellness goal, whatever it is, whatever it is. But like, don't you want to live your life to the fullest? Don't you want to achieve your dreams and your ambitions? Isn't that why we're alive right now? So thinking about those bigger questions, like, what do I want to achieve? How do I want to actually live my life? And when you sit down at the beginning of every season, revisit those big goals and plan them out for as long as the season is. What are the plan and create your goals for the season itself. And include seasonal practices. So the fall, and refer to your ebook guide if you want to know specifics for which ones those are. But in general, the fall is rejuvenating and building your immune system. The spring is for cleansing and detoxification. And the summer is for activity and, building and being part of community and being around. So the lunar practices are designated to be monthly. So during the new moon time is when there's no moon in the sky. And that's the nice period of the day to follow introspection, to ask yourself the deeper questions, to check in about your larger seasonal goals. And like, are you working towards them? And how are you feeling? Have you disconnected anyway? So the ideal time to do that is when there's no moon in the sky, when there's new moon in the sky. So again, you're sitting down at the beginning of each season and you're asking yourself big questions, and you're including, seasonal practices that are good for your constitution. So changes in your lifestyle there. And you're thinking about big lifetime goals, and you're plotting out like kind of like a rough 3-month plan of goals and everything that you need to do to realize those. And then the lunar practices it's just the new moon and the full moon. It happens every month. And that new moon time is like, checking in, seeing where you're at, writing out lists of your monthly goals. And the full moon time is, is a time of heightened energy. So it's like, maybe there's something that you've like really resisted doing. Maybe you don't really feel like getting a clear handle on your finances. Maybe you don't really feel like getting a personal trainer that would support you in an exercise program, So the full moon time is so much energy and gives you so much like empowerment. So that's the best time to do like those bigger goals that you have any resistance towards. So then we get even more finite, and then we're looking at daily lifestyle practices. And so your daily lifestyle practices include all of your diet, your eating times, yoga, meditation practices, and cleanse practices. So your diet. So we're going to start with that. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. So this is just a recap of what I just said. Intentionality is the biggest thing. What do you actually want? Why are you doing all of this stuff? As much as you can stay connected to that, you're going to subconsciously and consciously orchestrate your life to support the realization and obtainment of what you want, just by keeping your attention on it. So sitting down at the beginning of every season and create a 3-month intention map, that includes some seasonal practices. Again, visiting your local farmers market, finding out what's in season, maybe joining a CSA, those are seasonal practices that are going to help us keep you in balance. Looking up fall season recipes, spring season recipes, summer season recipes, to stay connected to your food. And then you're going to use the lunar cycles to vision your desires and goals for each month. The new moon, checking in, writing it out. The full moon, doing something big that you maybe feel resistance or fear around. And then you're going to connect with it each day during your morning routine. So you learn about the empowering morning routine, which is the most important feature of your day. And so you're going to stay connected with it every single day in your morning routine. All right, so by the diet. So by the 4th week, you should start to see if you're having negative reactions to certain foods that you eat. So you've started to introduce foods back into your diet so you can see how they make you feel. And that's like the biggest barometer that we have. There are stool tests, there are blood tests, and they all come with a wide degree of inaccuracy. So the best thing that you can do is cut out any food for a strict 2 weeks and then introduce it back into your diet and literally just observe what happens. And I know it requires a lot of discipline, invested interest, but that's why you signed up for the course. So certainly by the 8th week, you should know, if you have a dietary program that is sustainable to you and that is working for your constitution and type. And this is why it's so important for you to come in to make those calls on the weekly coaching calls, and to come to the live classes so we can talk about if what you're experiencing is a reaction or a detox reaction, and what to do so we can really support you. Shop locally and try to eat what is in season. And then, for specific augmentations, refer to your ebook that's been emailed to you. And so the 4th week diet, talks about specific ideal foods. But again, this is going to be different depending on your constitution and your type and how you're handling things. For example, one person may not be able to eat grains, by the 4th week, and it's included in your manual. So that needs to be adjusted. So spices. So Ayurveda uses spices to augment digestive function. So you have experienced some of this through your detox tea. But you can refer to your ebook for spices on what spices are best for you. And how this is broken down is mainly on your digestive type and things that were uncovered during your initial consultation and the assessment forms that you filled out. So the spices are loaded with so many benefits to the body, powerful antioxidants, nutrients, and a lot of the modern diet is super low on the diversity of spices that we use. But in Ayurveda, we use spices to augment digestive function. So there are spices that help to cool digestion, so reduce things like acid reflux or inflammatory bowel disorders. And there are spices that work to increase gut motility or calm the nerves. So it depends on what kind of digestive type that you have, which spices would be ideal for you. And so you're going to refer in your ebook at this time and see. Intestinal healers. So these are intestinal healers that should be part of everyday diet. So amino acids are the building blocks of your body. We need complete amino acid structures. So proteins, basically. Amino acids are the building blocks of protein as well. And so we have a certain string of amino acids that forms a complete protein. Meat contains complete proteins. There are complete proteins found in plants also, especially like spirulina or hemp seeds or seaweed. And those help to heal the gut fats. So that's like ghee or coconut oil or sesame seed oil or avocados or, fatty nuts or fatty fish a little bit, that actually help to coat the mucosal lining in the gut and heal the gut. Probiotics are the bacteria in our gut that controls gut motility, the creation of vitamins and nutrients. A lot of us tend to be deficient or have disturbed probiotic stores in our body because of our environmental exposures and lifestyle. So eating probiotic-rich foods is important, and prebiotics, which are the food for the probiotics, is also important. And so there are certain, usually plants, tend to be more high and dense with prebiotic material. So that's the food for the probiotics. Mucilages are certain plants that that are inflammatory and help to build the mucus lining on the intestinal wall. So licorice is one of those. Slippery elm, marshmallow root are others. In your ebook, you have suggestions on how to include these things into your daily diet. Cleanse practices. You've learned a ton of cleanse practices and you've done them up until this point. You've learned about meditation, which is absolutely imperative for detoxifying and cleansing the mind. Dry skin brushing, which is good for cleansing the lymphatic system. Drinking an adequate amount of liquid, eating a healthy diet, neti, self-massage. There's a million daily self-massages. Or I'm sorry, there are a million self-massages, but a million daily cleanse practices, and you don't have to do all of them. In your ebook, we have written out suggestions specifically for you on ideal daily lifestyle practices to include. Seasonal practices. So this is, doing cleanses at the junction of each season. So you did a comprehensive 28-day cleanse. That was your 4 weeks. And that is awesome to do that every single year. And I really think, doing a cleanse at each seasonal junction is important, but it doesn't have to be a 4-week long one. So you could do even a 3-day, a 5-day, a 7-day cleanse at the junction of each season. And so here in Chicago, we have 3 junctions. You may have 2 junctions. I don't know where you live. So the lymph cleanse is really good in the spring. So during the wet season, wherever you are, whenever you start to see features of like things that are kind of lymphatic, or what we would say kaphic. So like wet, damp, slimy. That's when lymph cleansing is good. Small intestine cleansing in the summer and large intestine cleansing in the fall. So, you did fasting. Fasting is good and wet, cold, clammy environments, or doing the niacin flush or dry skin brushing, using essential oils that help to cleanse the lymphatic system. The small intestine, eating blood cleansing foods like leafy green vegetables or herbs like milk thistle. Doing the sneha navarachna, the ghee drink followed by the castor oil flush is a good thing to do. A short one, or maybe just your 1-week protocol in the summer. And the large intestine cleanse in the fall. So that's the enemas. So you could literally do just that week, follow the diet for that week, follow the exact protocol for that week during the fall season as your shorter duration cleanse. It's beautiful, right? Oh. Okay, so I've shared a ton of information with you. I think that you definitely need to do the self-care module also. Dedicate some time to it. This is rich stuff, and it takes some time. And you may notice some interesting resistance come up around it, which I always find to be interesting when it comes to like actually mapping out what it is that you want and mapping out the kind of lifestyle that you want. Then all of a sudden, like you don't have the time or, whatever that is. Those are all signs of resistance. And actually what you're ultimately resisting is changing and becoming the person that you want to be, So break through that, utilize us, utilize our support. We're here to help you. And thank you so much for your time today. And I will see you and speak with you soon.